But here's the question I wanted to start with by asking today. Have you noticed that there are times where there are just certain things in life that just does not make sense? I mean, have you noticed that? Uh, for example, why do they put Braille on drive-through ATMs? Think about that, right? Does that, sometimes life does not make sense. How about this one? Why do our nose run, but our feet smell? See, think about it. These are some deep things of life that I took time contemplating this week. What if you want to send someone to something, or send something to someone, I should say, and if they send it by car, it's called a shipment. But if they send it by ship, it's called a cargo. See? These are deep things of life that again, I took some time contemplating. Why do we drive on parkways but then park on driveways? See, nonsensical things of life. And then finally, why do we call it a building when it's already been built? See, these are things to like really take time out and contemplate this week. So you could see that, this week as I was preparing for the sermon, I was diving into some deep theological issues, that we have to wrestle with. But here's the reality. Have you noticed sometimes that even the solutions that God gives, because there are times where God's principles don't necessarily gel with the economy of man or the way that we think that things should work. I mean, for example, if we're struggling financially, we're challenged to give and trust God in our finances. Or if there's somebody who is completely unapologetic for the things they've done to us, we're still challenged to forgive them anyway. Like we can go through a list. There's a litany of things that as we look through Scripture, it doesn't seem like it works the way that life should work, but yet if we begin to practice what Scripture is challenging us to do, we'll see that it can be very transformative and everything as well. And so here's my point, because we're talking about new power for a new season. And here's my point, and this is what you can see it's right on the screen as well. And that is, at some point in 2026, you will have to trust God when it does not make sense. At some point in 2026, you are going to have to trust God when it doesn't make sense. Maybe it might be your marriage. Maybe the challenges in your marriage seem insurmountable, and we're going to have to trust God at that point. Maybe financially, your bills are higher than your income, and you're going to have to trust God at that point. Maybe your boss at work or your professors at school have lost their ever-loving minds with the things that they're assigning and expecting you to do, and you're going to have to trust God in that moment. Or maybe over the course of this year, you'll receive a diagnosis that rocks your world, and you're going to have to trust God in that time. So that's really the challenge. We are going to go through some things this year that may feel nonsensical. There's a story that I happened to come across when I was looking at TikToks this week, and it was a story that they call her the unappreciated champion, which I thought was really interesting. So basically, here's the story: is she was have you seen those championship walkers, like the walkers in the Olympics, and their whole body's moving, and it's like speed walking. And I'm sorry for that demonstration, but I had to show you. But she was in the speed walking competition at the Sydney Games, and one of her partners on her team, they were expecting the partner to actually challenge and possibly finish in first place. And so in this race, it's interesting with these walking races. Then what happens is you have to have at least 1 foot on the ground the whole time during the race. So at some point, as you're walking, you can't lift up both feet because in essence, you're running. And so what happens is there are people that actually stand by and watch you. And as soon as you lift up 2 feet, they go, and they have a red flag. And you get 3 red flags in the course of the walk, the walking challenge, and you're out. And so her partner actually got 3 red flags. So she was out of the race. And so the Chinese delegation all left because they thought that, there was no way that they were going to win now. And the representative from Australia comes in the stadium. She's in first place. The woman from China is in second place. And what happens is, as the woman from Australia, and she is like, just distance. I mean, she's so close to the finish line. And as she comes around this corner, a guy, and you see those judges, right? They have the hats with the ugly vests, that kind of thing. He stands out with the red flag and goes, and so she's out. And so she would have finished with the gold medal. She walks out, she's in tears, and all of a sudden comes in this woman from China, and she finishes in first place. She gets the gold medal, and there's no delegation there. There's no cheering there. Sometimes they'll hold the flag of their nation up and everything. Well, there was nobody there to give her the flag. She's called the unappreciated champion. And sometimes life feels that way, isn't it? Doesn't it? Like you work hard, you put your best foot in, you do everything that you can in order to be successful, maybe to make your family better, to help your friends, to be able to excel at work and maybe excel at school. It seems like you try so hard, and it doesn't make sense because you are unappreciated by the people that are around you. So what do you do in those nonsensical moments? And we will have those nonsensical challenges of life. So over the series, we're looking at the life of a guy named Elisha. Now, Elisha's predecessor is a guy named Eli. All right, his name is Elijah, but Elijah and Elisha are so close, I know I'm going to stumble throughout these other series that I refer to the two of them. So I'm going to refer to Elijah as Eli, and then we'll stick with Elisha. And so looking at Elisha's predecessor, Eli, again, Eli finds himself in a situation where this challenge just makes no sense whatsoever. And I've done a sermon on this series on this challenge in the past. I might do one in the future, but just for the sake of today, we're not going to go through all the passages. I'm just going to describe it real quickly. So again, what happens is back in that day, the king of Israel, Ahab, had married a foreign woman, and the Bible had warned, there were laws against marrying foreigners. And the reason why is not because of being racist or anything like that, but Israel was surrounded by people that worshiped other gods. And so the concern was, if you marry outside of Israel, then what happens is the person might come in and influence you to begin to worship other things. So that was the reason. It was just a way to protect people to be able to keep their focus on God. Well, Ahab ignores that. He marries a woman named Jezebel. The people of Jezebel worship two gods. They worship a god named Baal, and they worship a woman, or a female god named Ashereth. And they're both fertility gods. And as a result of the king worshiping this person, then he begins to lead Israel down the path of worshiping this person, or these people as well. So what are these gods, I should say? And so what Eli does is Eli says, hey, let's have a God competition. Let's see which God shows up. And again, so what happens, they build altars, and they sacrifice an animal, and they put it on the altar, and he lets the prophets of Baal and Asherah, he lets them go first, and they go and they start, and nothing's happening. It's kind of like, and then one of the things that's really fun is he starts like trash talking them. Like maybe your God's on a toilet, maybe your God's indisposed. He starts really giving them a hard time kind of thing. But nothing happens. And so then he says, well, let's see if my God shows up. So then what he does is he has, there's an altar. He puts the sacrifice on the altar. And then he has people come and they bring water, and they put water on the altar, water. And there's so much water on the altar that it's dripping. There's water all around. It's a sloshy mess. Then Eli prays, and all of a sudden, fire from heaven. So I want to make this really clear. The reason why this is nonsensical, there's no match. There's no campfire that he's pulling a log out of. There's no, watch me pull a fire out of my hat. There's none of that. There is all of a sudden, boom, just fire comes down and boom. It's this nonsensical moment that is incredible where God shows up powerfully. And so I'm saying all that to kind of set the tone for what we're going to be looking at today, because I want us to understand this principle. You can see this right on the screen. A nonsensical life allows God to appear in unexpected places and in unpredictable ways. in unexpected places and in unpredictable ways. That's the power of what God can do when we find ourselves dealing with nonsensical situations. So now let's fast forward to now Elisha. He's the main prophet. He's kind of the main guy. At this point, Eli has been taken up to heaven miraculously. These chariots from heaven come, grab Eli, and take him up to heaven, which is pretty incredible. But also at this point, Ahab has died, and the new king of Israel is a guy named Joram. Now, Joram is not as bad as Ahab. However, he still is bad. He's still not really a good guy. And so the king of Moab had a responsibility, had a commitment to the king of Ahab because of an agreement they had made. And so this agreement was that every year, Moab would provide Israel with 100,000 lambs and the wool of 100,000 rams. So 100,000 lambs and the wool of 100,000 rams. Almost like what the Panthers tried to do to the Rams last night, kind of deal. So there's a little football joke for you Rams fan as well. But the Rams prevailed. But with that in mind, the king of Moab was like, well, Ahab is dead. I ain't doing this. I'm not doing this. And so Joram decides, like, okay, then, buddy, we need to have it out. So he decides to go into war with the king of Moab. And before he does that, he approaches, because at this point, Israel has split into two kingdoms. They split into two kingdoms. So there's Israel in the north, and there's Judah in the south. And so what happens is Joram goes to the king of Judah at this time, which happens to be a guy named Jehoshaphat. So if you've ever heard, like, jump in Jehoshaphat, this is King Jehoshaphat. So he goes to him and says, hey, I'm going to go into battle with Moab. Will you go with me? And Jehoshaphat's like, hey, your peeps are my peeps. So yeah, let's go. And also the king of Edom joins them as well. So, but the thing is with the Moabs, they were kind of nomadic, so they were difficult to kind of nail down. And so as they're going about trying to find them, eventually what happens is all of them, they run out of water. They have no water for themselves, and they have no water for their animals. And so it looks like they're facing possible death and defeat. Like we've come out here to fight this battle, and now we're gonna die because we don't have enough water. And so look at what Joram's response is to this situation. He says in 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 10, he says, what should we do? The king of Israel cried out, the Lord, let me emphasize that. The Lord, let me say that again. The Lord, because we're going to come back to that, has brought the three of us here to let the king of Moab defeat us. The Lord. Now, I say all that to say this. This is why, because as the one who entered into these alliances to say, hey, let's go do this, the responsibility to make sure they had enough water, to make sure they were prepared for this battle was Joram's. It was his responsibility. So this mess that they find themselves in, is his mess. But he does what a lot of us do. Instead of saying, you know what, man, I made some bad decisions. I shouldn't have got myself in this situation. This is my fault. He's like, the Lord has brought us here. And here's the question is, how many of us have blamed God for circumstances in which we find ourselves, and it was our fault, but now because God doesn't show up the way that we want him to, and we don't have the results that we thought we should have, man, this is God's fault. It's God's. How many times have we seen people do that? And how many times have we been guilty of doing that ourselves? And here's the reality, is Joram's mindset really is that he is not interested in spiritual solutions whatsoever. And he is not interested in personal responsibility whatsoever. So it's easier. Sometimes in order to avoid facing ourselves and looking at the person in the mirror, isn't it easy to blame someone else? And we kind of see that happen in our society. And when we don't have anyone else to blame, then we can blame God. So that's kind of where Joram is. That's kind of where Joram's mindset is. And one of the things that I really appreciate about my wife is an incredible planner. She just is. So we've done trips together, and we'll be on trips, and we'll think about, oh, we need this. And Heidi's like, oh, I got that. Oh, we need to get, oh, I got that. She's like figured everything out compared to when I plan something. You know, we went to Washington, D.C., and it was my responsibility to plan the tour of the U.S. Capitol. And so we leave the Verbal that we were staying in, and then once I get there, I realize I forgot the tickets for the U.S. Capitol tour at the Verbo. But thank goodness I had a receipt on my phone, so we could be able to use that to show proof that we were there. Thank goodness I thought to do that. But what I didn't think to do was to look up where we should park, where's the best place to go. So as a result of that, it's also raining that day. So me not looking at where to park, best place to go, having the tickets, like all of that stuff, we get there and it was highly stressful and we missed our tour. But thank goodness we were able to get into the tour that came after ours. But it's just one of those things where Highest Prepared has it all together. I was Durham. You know, I was the one, and thank God, you know, I've gotten better because of her influence. I've gotten better at planning and putting things together and that kind of thing. But it's always interesting to see like the differences between the two of us. But as we're moving forward, there's something that I really want us to understand. Because again, nonsensical lives allow God to show up in unexpected places in unpredictable ways. But with that in mind, here's what I want us to understand as well. And this is really great when we face nonsensical challenges. You can see it's right on the screen also. Your greatest challenge becomes your greatest gift when it drives you to depend on God. Your greatest challenge becomes your greatest gift when it drives you to depend upon God. And this is really important. So I want to make sure that we understand this. Our greatest challenge becomes our greatest gift. Has a potential to. And it just depends on how we respond to our greatest challenge. Like if we respond to our greatest challenge and say, you know what, God, I'm going to trust you, I'm going to depend on you, and so it has the opportunity to drive us to him, then this challenge becomes an incredible gift. But if we don't do that, then this challenge becomes an incredible burden. But it's up to us to choose. And with that, here's what I want to encourage us to think about as we go through the rest of this message is, will we be Joram or will we be Jehoshaphat? Will we be Joram or will we be Jehoshaphat? Because we will see that there is a categorical difference between the two. And it'll start with this passage. In 2 Kings chapter 3, verses 11 and 12, it says, "But King Jehoshaphat of Judah asked, 'Is there no prophet of the Lord with us? If there is, we can ask the Lord what to do through him.' When one of King Joram's officers replied, 'Elisha, son of Shaphat, is here. He used to be Elijah's personal assistant.' Jehoshaphat said, 'Yes, the Lord speaks through him.' So the king of Israel, the king Jehoshaphat of Judah, and the king of Edom went to consult with Elisha." So now here's the thing that's interesting. In looking at the difference between the two, Joram does what? Joram blamed God, like, God, it's your fault. It's your fault I'm in this mess. Jehoshaphat was like, hey, let's seek God. Let's go after him. Let's talk to him. Let's get advice from God. So again, who are we going to be? Are we going to be Joram or are we going to be Jehoshaphat? That's the choice that we have to make. And so as we look at this, now here's the thing that's really interesting. Jehoshaphat asked a question that should have sparked Joram to answer like, oh, yeah, because Elisha is in Israel at this time. So Joram should have been the first one to say, oh, yeah, there's this prophet Elisha. Let's go talk to him. And the passage says one of Joram's officers. So even after being asked, Elisha's not even on the mind of Joram. One of his officers has to speak up and says, oh, yeah, there's Elisha. And here's the thing that I love. Jehoshaphat automatically assumed, okay, well, God must speak to him. Let's go. Joram should have been the one leading them there. It's his nation. It's his people. And it's a prophet in his land. But instead, Jehoshaphat is leading them. So again, who will you be? Will you be Joram or will you be Jehoshaphat? Will you be Joram or will you be Jehoshaphat? That's ultimately the choice that we have to make. Will we decide to seek God when life makes no sense? Will we decide to do that? Or will we decide to blame God when life makes no sense, especially when we've gotten ourselves in our mess? We have to decide that. So the passage goes on, and it says this in 2 Kings chapter 3, verses 14 and 15. It says, Elisha replied, as surely as the Lord Almighty lives, whom I serve, I wouldn't even bother with you except for my respect for King Jehoshaphat of Judah. So think about that. And then he says in verse 15, now bring me someone who can play the harp. So now think about that. Think about that. See, Elisha knew that Joram wasn't interested in spiritual solutions. He wasn't even interested in pursuing God. Wasn't interested at all. And so Elisha said, look, if Jehoshaphat wasn't here, I wouldn't even care. I wouldn't even bother. Because I know you're not even looking. So why waste my time? But because Jehoshaphat is here, let's go ahead and let's seek God. So again, we have to decide, will I be Joram or will I be Jehoshaphat? Will I be the reason why, because of the way that I live my life, will I be the reason that people don't even consider seeking God? Because they look at my life and God's not even on my radar. There's a statement that I've heard that sometimes Christians can be practicing atheists. Why? Because we live as though God does not exist. We're Christian by name, but not believers by trust, and not followers by commitment. We're practical atheists. But Jehoshaphat, because of Jehoshaphat being there, Elisha's like, well, let's go ahead and let's seek God. So as a result of that, I want to encourage us to be Jehoshaphat's, where because of our presence, because of our influence, that it not only hopefully causes other people to seek God, but it also opens the door for God to be able to move because our presence is there. So are you praying for people? Are you praying for your neighbors? Are you praying for your friends? Are you praying for your coworkers? Are you praying for your fellow students? Are you praying for your boss? Are you praying for your professor? Are you praying? Are you intercessing? Are you being the presence of God in the lives of those that are around you? Are you? That's what we have to decide. Again, will I be Jehoshaphat or will I be Joram? And then here's what also the thing that I love is Elisha said, okay, let's go ahead and let's seek God. And the thing that I thought was really interesting, he says, now bring me someone who can play the harp. You know what he's doing? Is he is building an atmosphere of worship. And he's saying, look, let's go before God in worship. And I want to challenge us with that as well. Because as we begin to understand, worship is categorically valuable in our lives, especially if we call ourselves someone who's going to follow him. It's vital in our lives, I should say, that we become people who worship him. And again, worship doesn't always necessarily mean music, but worship means that, God, I appreciate you in every aspect of everything that I do. I appreciate you as I mop this floor. I appreciate you as I process this project or whatever it is that we're doing. I appreciate where we begin to bring the mindset of worship in every aspect of our lives. But I also believe that we should bring musical worship into our lives as well. So here's what I want to encourage you to do. If Gabe is playing music, and there's a song that really touches you, you hear, something that Gabriel plays, and you're like, man, I really love that song. Feel free. I'm sure that if you went up to Gabe after the service and said, hey, can you tell me the name of that song? He'd be like, nope. Figure it out. That's why they have SoundHound. No, he wouldn't be that way. He would be, absolutely. And there are times where, and I know that he would love to share those songs with you. Because there are times where he and I will have conversations about some of the choices that he makes. And we'll be done afterwards, and I think, oh man, that song is great. So yeah, look at those lyrics. Aren't those lyrics incredible? I was like, oh, those lyrics are incredible. And then we both start to vibe off of each other because we are excited about the song and what it's going to be able to do for the message, for the sermon, and that kind of thing. He would love that. And I would encourage you to do that. Maybe go up to him after the service and say, hey, can you tell me the name of that song? And he might say, well, what song are you talking about? And then feel free to sing it to him. No, just joking. But feel free to describe it to him. Feel free to talk to him about it. And he'll do that. And here's what I want to encourage you to do. is put that song, especially like if you're someone who uses Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, whatever it is that you stream your music through. I would encourage you, put that song in a playlist. And start, and here's what you can do, is play that song, and then most likely with that song, other songs in that genre will come up and they will begin to play as well. And as you hear other songs that really touch your heart, that really move you, add those songs to the playlist. So then what happens is when you are in a situation where it's difficult and it's hard and you can't get your mind off of your nonsensical circumstance, then worship. Because what worship does is worship shifts our heart. It moves us. It moves us to this place where now I'm not focusing on my nonsensical situation. I am worshiping God and adoring Him and focusing on the God who is incredible. I am focusing on the God who shows up again in unpredictable places in unexpected ways. I am worshiping a God that does that. And so it kind of puts our heart in the place. It shifts us. It shifts our hearts. It also shifts our thoughts. It shifts our mindsets because now we're in this place where, God, I am in full adoration of you. And that's a game changer. It really is. And even if the situation does not work out, because I want to make this really clear too, worship is not a tool that we use to manipulate God to do what it is that we want Him to do, get the outcome that we do want. Because it doesn't always work out that way. It doesn't always work out that way. Again, Jesus prayed that the bitter cup of the cross would be taken away from Him, and He was still crucified. So there are moments where we may pray and we may seek God and want things to change, and they may not. And it may get worse. But what worship does is worship reminds us that, God, no matter what it is that I go through, you are in control. And I still trust you. And I depend on you and I rely on you. And it makes a huge difference in our lives as well. And I love, as we look at this, there was a meme that I came across this week, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's so good. I'm going to use that in a sermon. You can see the meme right here on the screen as well. It says, both fear and faith demand you believe in something you cannot see. It's your choice. Both fear and faith demand you believe in something you cannot see. It's your choice. So what choice are you going to make? Am I going to allow fear to drive me in this nonsensical situation, or I'm going to allow faith to drive me? And here's the thing that's really important. Did you know fear is also a statement of faith? It's just not faith in God. It may be faith in your circumstance, faith in your situation, faith in people, faith in finances. It is faith in something, but it is definitely not faith in God. Or we could choose faith, the statement of faith in Him and who He is. And ultimately that, God, I trust you. So again, will we be Joram or will we be Jehoshaphat? It goes on to say in 2 Kings chapter 3, verses 15 through 17, now bring me someone who can play the harp. While the harp was being played, the power of the Lord came upon Elisha. And he said, this is what the Lord says. This dry valley will be filled with pools of water. You will see neither wind nor rain, says the Lord, but this valley will be filled with water. You will have plenty for yourselves and for your cattle and other animals. In other words, God is saying, I'm about to show up big. I'm about to show up big. But now here's the thing that's really interesting. The Hebrew word that is used, that is translated as pools in this passage, can also be translated as trenches. Now, why is that so important? It's important for this reason, and it's important, and it's valuable that we understand this. The trenches were not pre-existing. So literally, in order for the trenches to be there, it required the people to dig. Now remember, I'm digging in this place where I have no water for my animals. So this is a physical sacrifice that I am making, that I'm taking this risk to do. But because God has said He's going to move, I am going to dig. I'm going to dig this trench. And again, I'm digging this trench where there's no cloud, no wind, no sign of rain. I am digging this trench. So again, God's solution in this situation makes no sense with what I should do. It's like when Noah was building the ark. It made no sense. It's like when God said to Abram, who eventually became Abraham, hey, go to this place that I'm going to tell you, but I'll tell you what it is when you get there. What? Just go. Again, makes no sense. And sometimes the decisions that we make to follow God and trust Him, there are times when people will talk to us and say, ooh, that doesn't make sense. That's not smart. There are times when people will tell us that. But again, I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. I trusted Him. And so that means that when it doesn't make sense, I grab my shovel and I start to dig. It means when it doesn't make sense, I hook up the plow to my oxen. Who needs water? For my oxen to plow the area, maybe to tenderize the area, to get the area started, so now I can dig. It makes no logical sense to do this. But it's just based on one thing. God, you're going to show up. So therefore, I will dig. I don't know. I don't know what it is that you're going to go through in 2026. I don't know the challenges that you will face. I don't know what the plot points of your life will be. I don't know the chapters of your life you will face. I have no idea what's going to happen to you in 2026. But I will encourage you to do this. Start digging. Start digging. Start laying the foundation now. Start preparing the soil now so that when God shows up with His refreshment, that you have the trenches or the pools in place ready to capture the water as it comes. Start digging now. And we'll look at what it means to dig in a second. But let's start doing that now. It says in 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 20, it says, the next day, at about the time when morning sacrifice is offered. You know what they're saying? The next day when it was time to worship. The next day when morning sacrifice is offered, water suddenly appeared. It was flowing from the direction of Edom. And soon there was water everywhere. I love this. It's not like it started to rain, because we've had some of that recently over the course of the holidays. Isn't it crazy how much rain we got over the holiday season? It was bonkers. One of the things that we did with our family is we went out to Solvang on Friday, because every year, like that last Friday before, that last Friday of the second week of January, they do a bonfire. And so everybody drops off their Christmas trees, and they do a massive bonfire with Christmas trees. And so we drove out to Solvang on Friday so we can have a chance to be able to go see that, do that together. And we showed up, and then there was a sign that was there that we didn't see when we parked. And the sign said, canceled. And it was canceled because of the ground and how wet the ground was. That's how much rain that we had during that time that they had to cancel this. And I think there are also times where you have a choice. The choice that you have is this. Will I produce my own rain? And the only rain that I can produce is spit, right? That's about it, and that's as far as I'm going to go with that assumption. But with that, or will I trust on the Lord, who is an endless supply of whatever it is that I need? And He will bring me all of the refreshment that I need as well. Will I trust in Him? So that's the point, and that's the call, with that. So God wants to do a work in you. He wants to bring refreshment into your life this year. So I want to encourage you, but you need to start digging. Start digging. Digging may mean spending time with God and who He is. Digging may mean that maybe I need to look at my trust level and my relationship with Him and continue to build that trust. Digging may mean that I need to change some of the foundational principles in my life. Digging may mean that maybe it's time that I start serving, or maybe it's time that I start giving. Maybe it's time that I start allowing my life to count in those ways. Digging may mean that it's time for me to really begin to step forward in my relationship with God and my trust in Him. Digging may mean that what I'm doing is I'm preparing myself. Here's what I want to encourage you to do. This is the part of digging that will help. Bring pencil and paper on a Sunday morning as you hear the messages. And maybe there's something that God might say that might spark a thought. Or maybe during the music, there's something that God might speak to you during the music that might spark a thought. Write it down. And also, if you want to use your phone during that time, I'm totally fine with you doing that. If God inspires you and you pick up your phone and open up your notes icon and then begin to leave yourself messages, which I kind of giving you an excuse too. Like if you start texting with people, no, I'm leaving notes. Ken told me I could, But either way, use that. Use those tools that you have. God, and I would encourage you, come on Sundays with expectation. Like, God, I know that you're going to speak. I know that you have something to say to me. And I'm gonna make sure that I am ready and prepared to hear it, store it, process it, plan it, and grow it in my life. I am making a commitment to do that with my life as well. But I love this. So I want to encourage you, start digging. In the immortal words of Dory from Finding Nemo, just keep digging, I know she said swimming, but I'm changing it to digging for the sake of the message. But just keep digging, keep preparing, keep building. And I also want to encourage you with this as well. During our reading this week, there was something that was said that I thought was fantastic. And that is, usually this time of the year, these are the times that we make spiritual commitments. I'm going to read my Bible, I'm going to pray, or just whatever it might be. This is the time of year that we do that. But then what happens is we start off January 1st, we're good. 2nd, we're good. January 5th, we are good. And then what happens is January 11th kicks around, and now we're about 2 or 3 days behind. I saw another meme that I thought was really great. It said, I've made a commitment that I am going to run for 15 minutes a day. And what I will do is for every minute that I don't run, I'm going to make it up. And so right now, I need to run for 3 months. Right? Love that. But I think we do that with God as well. I think we stop praying, we stop reading because we become too intimidated. Like, oh my gosh, I have all of this I need to catch up on. God is not interested in your catch up. He just wants you to start. Just get back on the path. And if that means that you go back to where you were, then go back to where you were and just continue to press on. Or if it means just pick up where you are, just pick up where you are. But God doesn't want your relationship with Him to be driven by guilt and for you to feel like a failure. I made this commitment, God, and I've blown it in the time that I was going to spend with you. No, it's not about guilt. So come back before Him. God, and I'll tell you, one of the things I've never done, when my kids come home from college, why do you come home sooner? Why do you text me more often? Why do you call me more often? You got FaceTime, why don't you FaceTime me? I never do that with my kids. You know what I do? I'm so excited to see them. I run out, to the car. I'll help bring stuff in. I'll give them big hugs. And I think it's the same way with God. God is not there to remind you of how much you failed. He'll just be so excited to be with you and see you and want to connect with you and spend time with you. So start there and continue to grow and build in your relationship with Him. So again, here in Encounter, we are driven by the great commandment, which is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. We say love up for loving God, love out for loving others, and love in for loving yourself. And so what we do is we try to end every message. In the past, we would do a principle based upon loving up, loving out, loving in. But I'm making a shift this year, and instead of talking about principles, I'm talking about commitments. Now, here's what I want to encourage you to do. You can use these commitments. If so, that's great. But if you're inspired by the message to make other commitments, feel free to use those as well. These are just suggestions, suggested commitments that you can make based upon the message for today. So love up. I will seek, worship, dig, and even dig when it makes no sense or when it feels nonsensical. I'll do that. Love out. I will be an intercessor for the lives of those that are around me. Start praying for people. Start praying. This is uncomfortable. What if we prayed for people as much as we complain about people? That's ouch, right? What if we prayed for people as much as, and again, this isn't about guilt, but I really want to inspire you to step into something greater. Complaint only builds a negative spirit. But prayer opens the door where we can see God move in a way that we didn't expect. And then finally, love in. I will keep digging even when I cannot see what God is doing. I will keep digging even when I cannot see what God is doing. So again, our 3 takeaways is today: seek, worship, dig. Seek, worship, dig. And also a reminder that nonsensical moments of life are opportunities for God to show up in unexpected ways and in unexpected places and unpredictable ways. And finally, your greatest challenge could become your greatest gift if it challenges you to depend upon God. Jesus, I thank you